So Nabil, thank you very much for making time to share your insights into the future of leadership. But before we go
Yeah,
into the future, can you tell us a little bit about your own background? Where did you grow up?
well, thank you very much, Doc. Where I grew up, I was born in Johannesburg, born as a set of triplets, but I grew up in Lusaka, Zambia. And I kind of grew up all over the place because then we came back to South Africa. I spent a lot of time in the Northern Province at the time, Limpopo, and in Zanin and Petersburg is what they were called at the time before I made a full circle with the family and came back to Johannesburg over the years.
And tell us, what was your dream career when you grew up?
This is a funny one, Doc. Please don't laugh at me. As far as I can remember, it was a cowboy. I wanted to grow up to become a cowboy. And, in hindsight, it was actually quite accurate because I started my career, one of my careers, in stunts in the film industry. And, that's all about you stunt double an actor, or you're part of the stunt team to make Hollywood, Bollywood productions, local productions as well. And that was my career. And when you look at it in hindsight, the freedom, I suppose, exploring new territories was my link to justify that memory of wanting to be a cowboy.
Yeah, and so who inspired you in your early days?
Doc, it's an interesting question to answer because I never had one person or one moment that inspired me, but rather, I found inspiration through many people and things and events along the journey. As far as I can remember, I've always spent dedicated time reflecting every day on the moments, people, interactions, and I used to think about the possibilities of which the day played out, how it could have played out, and try to take lessons from all of opportunities or missed opportunities to be better. And I suppose I find inspiration today and along the journey from different types of people that I meet, and I kind of keep my mind open to their hows, whys, passions, and purposes, and it motivates me to see that people are on their own journeys, and it is its own source of inspiration, I suppose.
And tell us, Nabil, today you're a financial coach, you're a financial planner. I believe you're a member of the $1 Million Table, right?
Yes.
So and you are the host of Money Talks. So how did you start your financial planning career? And what is it that really got you into the financial industry?
Well, the short answer of that is I found myself in the financial services industry. There's been many points in my journey when it comes to the world of working, the world of business and money. And it started, I was a accounting finance student throughout the varsity days. As a triplet, we grew up with the end in mind, so to speak, from a cultural perspective. You're going to become a doctor, a lawyer, an accountant. And it's from varsity I transitioned to just call it a turning point, right? Into the film industry. I became an athlete in a sport called free running and parkour. That's where they jump from building to building, right? From there, it led me into a career in the film industry because they needed people with skills like mine and the team. And from there, your mind and your world is opened into this completely new industry of stunts. And it was a wonderful career industry there. And life was settling down, let's put it to you that way. And I needed stability and focus. And at the time, this wasn't too long ago, it was 6-7 years ago, where I was actually trying to use my majors in finance and computer programming and kind of looking at the world ahead. And I sent out my CVs, and that's the first time I actually tasted what the real life working world was.
Yeah.
And sent out my CVs, and one of the responses in a time where jobs, and it's so sad and it's unfortunate that unemployment rate hasn't, 7 years ago till today, it's kind of where it is, if not worse. Trying to find a job is a hard thing. And an insurance company contacted me, and I thought, this is an interview for something that I applied for. And it turned out to be insurance, investments, financial planner position, financial advisor at the time. And, you know, a long story short, I accepted to take the opportunity on a condition that I made with myself, that I can take something away from this opportunity to learn how to manage my own money. And that's really where it began.
And tell us, what would you say was a major turning point in your career?
I mean, I suppose it's I'm constantly in a turning point.
Yeah.
Doc, I mean, I went from accounting science degree to being a stuntman in the film industry.
Right.
And 3 years later of transitioning into the financial services industry, I ranked in the top 35 financial advisors. And ever since then, I'm involved in a few other industries and the stakes that I have in different businesses in those industries. And then there's a financial literacy channel.
Yeah.
It seems to be, you know, it's something completely different than financial services when you bring in financial literacy. So I suppose I don't see any moment as a turning point. I just kind of see it as a progression in the journey of my life and career.
And tell us, Nabeel, what would you say is a secret of your success?
Ooh,
If
that's
there's
an
one
interesting one, Doc.
thing.
Yeah. Oh, you said that I should comment. One thing is the secret of my success. You know, I mean, I've been asked this question a lot under different circumstances from different individuals. So if I were to put a major statement there to say the one secret to success, honestly, is being open and trying to understand every situation and allow your values and beliefs, so to speak, to lead the way in the decisions that you make in the whether it's business, personal, and all the other factors that life kind of surrounds yourself with. If you're true to that and you just remain fair, open, honest, I think success is just a byproduct.
And would you still consider yourself an athlete today?
Oh, of course, man.
Yeah.
Training is part of my life. I absolutely consider myself an athlete. You know, one of the best parts about competing and practicing a sport like parkour, which is, let's say, famously known to be a non-competitive sport. So your competition is yourself. From playing soccer, from being a squash player, I used to play provincial cricket. I've always been an athlete, both competitive line of fence and leading up to the last sport, which is more competing with yourself. Even till today, I try to remain active, try to train at least once a day. If I don't feel right. And it's funny because when I revisit my book of notes, when I was an actual full-time athlete, it's kind of like a new challenge, you know. And so at 100%, I consider myself an athlete. I actually try to take a few days off every year to go work on a film with some of the wonderful people in the film industry. So I still try to link and stay close to my passion of stunts in the film industry. So it's very much alive and current.
So, Nabil, what would you say is driving you today?
I suppose the answer to that is it's the same thing that's driving everyone, you know, which is change. And the world is changing as we speak, but at the same time, it's always been changing if you think about it, right? I mean, I remember a time, and we talk here about my history where I'm pulling these examples from. When I first joined the film industry, it was kind of run in a hard military fashion. You know, it was yes, sir, no, sir, and you stay in line or you don't get the job or the next job. And when I saw it change, I actually did see it and I was still present when I saw it change to a world where your opinion matters. And it's the same in traditional workforce, you know, Doc, with corporate hierarchy, and then a change to a more agile structure of leadership, let's put it that way, and levels of communication. And I mean, even today, when you look at financial literacy, schooling systems, everyone has known for a while now that change was needed, and to some degree, there has been change, but the problem is far from solved yet. We've seen just in the past 10 years incredible change to what's possible digitally to make a difference. Yet at the same time, there are new barriers being formed for whatever's at play. Long story short, I suppose what drives me, I wake up every day with the need, I suppose, to make a difference, and help people. And when I found myself in the position I was in the financial services industry, and the difference I needed to make became clear, because I engage with many people on a daily basis, and I know they're not going to reach financial freedom because they're stuck in a system. And the question that I ask myself regularly is exactly that. It's how am I going to help them get there regardless of what's holding them back?
Now, Nabeel, let's talk about the future of leadership. And I know it's a big question, but what does the future of leadership mean to you?
I gave this question some deep thought when I read it in preparation. The future of leadership. What is there to hold in the future, especially for people that are going to take the lead and try to make a difference for themselves in their line, in their industry, and whatever it is they apply themselves to. And to me, the future of leadership, I suppose, is the ability of future leaders today to realize that the only way forward is to serve, right? Is to serve people and to give and add that value into whatever they're doing above all else. And especially with how fast the world is moving, to collaborate, to create solutions. And I think the future of leadership lies in that, in collaboration around many people coming together to solve a certain problem or approach a certain task.
And Nabeel, looking back over your own leadership journey, what is it you have learned about the qualities that you would consider most important for building future leaders?
I mean, the quality for building future leaders, I suppose the qualities come from a lot of, they say when you teach a child, give a child to me for 7 years and I'll show you who the man is going to be, so to speak. If I look at my own journey, something I was taught by my brother when I was young, and I never thought much of it then, but it stuck with me. And then I experienced physically in my career, be it as a free runner, athlete, and everything else that I've kind of gone through over the course of the journey so far, has been a statement, right? It was all held in this one statement, and it's an obstacle is a thing that you see when you lose sight of your goal. And so I'd say from that statement, as far as I've seen and experienced the world, literally nothing is too big to overcome. And if you can see it and believe it, that everyone can make a difference, then they absolutely can, And I can talk for hours on the studies and justification of this, because I also have a deep interest in behavior and psychology. That being said, to answer your question, Doc,
Yeah.
the qualities are based on the culture and the environment in which you want to breed your leaders in, and the possibilities are endless.
Now, Nabeel, when you talk to aspiring leaders, what do you tell them about social media? How should they handle and navigate social media to build their own leadership brand?
I don't generally talk a lot to leaders about social media. It's not generally the question that people ask me, but now more than ever, because of social media, it's substantially easier to build a following, right? And if you have the right message, you'll have influence with that following, which is hugely powerful, especially from, let's look back 20 or 30 years with regards to the power of brands influencing the purchasing behavior or the following. It's now completely evolved into personalities and such, right? And with that in mind, we're living in a world that's growing fast, and it's also growing past the facade of an online brand presence, if that makes sense, Doc. So people want to see who you are and what your values are. And I think it's important that future leaders get comfortable sharing their values on real human issues above and beyond brand presence and business interests. And I think that's where the key lies in the level of influence when trying to make a difference,
Well, Nabeel,
especially online. Yes.
we met on LinkedIn. You were clearly standing out on LinkedIn. And it was one particular post of yours that attracted my interest. And so, yeah, you certainly have insights to share when it comes to LinkedIn leadership. And Nabeel?
No, thank you very much, Doc. If there's a platform and we can create awareness, I think as well to my statement that I made somewhere, one of the questions about giving, whether it's on social media or helping others build their online brand presence in a world. Like if you think about it, right, Doc, today you can shout out loud in your space, right? So I currently have my phone in front of me and I can say, hey Siri, and this isn't a video, but this phone literally started listening to me, so I just have to close that. But I can ask them, where, hey Alexa, okay Google, or whatever the commands are today. Imagine not too long in the future, you're going to ask that digital device, please find me the leader in a certain environment. Let's say, who is the best financial planner? That answer is not it's a very relative answer to a specific niche, but that computer is probably going to take a series of algorithms and questions and statements, depending how it's built, to sift through all the information there is out there. And a strong online brand presence is going to stand out as a first level recommendation back from that computer. That makes complete sense to me. And so what you're doing today, creating your kind of online trail, has probably a lot to do with that level of future as a possibility.
Absolutely. So Nabil, as the future is changing ever faster, what would you say are the biggest challenges future leaders are likely to encounter and should expect to encounter in their career?
Yeah, that's an interesting one, Doc. Look, if we look at the world today, the world fundamentally today, in the past, and we only have the past to look at so far, it's fundamentally averse to change, right? So it's resistant to it, even though it is changing, and more so when you're going against the status quo. And especially in the beginning as a leader, the challenges will come from multiple fronts, sometimes even places you didn't even expect it to come from. And I can talk to that when I had the concept of creating a channel. Until today, my why, I wrote down to make a difference, to help the people that I would like to see learn about this industry, learn about the need for their own financial security and how it's innately going to come from internally, so within themselves, and not necessarily is dependent or reliant on the systems around us, call it financial services. And when I created it, I didn't want it to be a lead generation tool. These are the words that come out when you mention digital and social media. That's why till today the channel is free from any advertising. It's free from me saying contact me for any advice. It's completely do it yourself, as best as possible, as technical as possible. I will explain the concept, right? So you learn and you grow. And initially I had this concept for at least 2 years before I actually launched the channel. And I did my research. I'm very open with my thoughts and ideas. I discuss them freely with whoever's in front of me. I'm not too much, I don't hold too much on the word IP. It is what it is. And if I put it out there, then I will only receive feedback, which can aid my thoughts. And along the way, there were so many reasons why I shouldn't start this channel. Simply by nature of feedback from people in the industry. People will say this won't work. They go, yeah, it's a good idea, but you have to keep producing. You got to focus on the sales aspect of the business. And to me, those weren't the answers I was looking for. Yet I found the answers backing my journey throughout that journey. Backing the reason, the rationale why I should really follow what I want to do. And it's not all the time, but it's interesting to note that's one of the things that I faced in my journey. And so I'd say This happens a lot with anyone along their path to achieving a goal, right? And I suppose that it's important to understand that we live in a world that's mainly driven by money. You know, the key driver is not change. Um, is not change in the world. It's just money. And if you understand that, you can approach every decision as a leader. That you have to make from a point of clarity and avoid the distractions. You'll probably come out the other side being very clear about your intentions, your passion, and your purpose throughout all the potential challenges that lie out there.
Now, Nabeel, if you were to design a curriculum for future leaders, what are some of the new skills that you would like to factor in?
If I were to design a curriculum, Doc, it's interesting. When you design a curriculum, you take a very personalized conversation and you try to make it generic. It's not always such. But if I did, I'd definitely try design something around the skill of being open, honest, and present, because that is a skill. As much as the world is changing fast, and I'll say this again, I keep repeating myself. I personally take comfort in the fact that people, that human beings, and their behavior will stay the same, right? So the problem of behavior, though, is that it can be molded and changed. And if we're living in this world, when I say fast, I mean it's data driven. If we look at everything around us from our phones and the ease of technology, everything is designed to know who you are. It listens. That's why when you speak about a new, let me think of something, a new car, for example, you all of a sudden start seeing car adverts in the social media that you present yourself in, or you're searching through. That is an actual thing. It's a digital marketing algorithm that, when you opt in with your speaker on your phone or to different apps, you're actually allowing permissions to your microphone. It identifies keywords, and it's quite actually a simple system. But if you look at that as one example, that's kind of the world trying to learn about the behavior of everybody that's using devices, right, and using the internet. And it's all targeted marketing, which changes behavior. Everything's designed to suggest to you it's heading toward automation. And with that in mind, before you know it, your behavior will be dependent on automation, right? So what could serve you well, and what I could create in this course, is to develop a skill of slowing down your thoughts. Leaders need to, or future leaders need to learn to slow down, take a break from automation, and give thought to the potential outcomes of their decisions. Definitely, I'd say another one is the skill of building relationships, meaningful ones based on trust and human interaction, and the skill of exploring your own creativity and thoughts. These are different skills. I'd say it's important, yes, to understand marketing and data, but I think the future leaders will need to learn how to differentiate and be more human in their interactions in their businesses.
Now, Nabeel, as a mentor to future leaders, can you maybe share a success story or two where you mentored an upcoming leader and that person took your advice to heart?
No, absolutely. I can think of a few. I wouldn't say I define the relationship as mentor and mentee. I've yet to add that to my title of things, but I try to help where I can, right? And if I do take on somebody as a mentor, I like, you'll hear the thought process out loud. Um, I actually didn't prepare for this question on purpose, so I can explore this thought with you, Doc. Is if you understand the nature of a relationship, right? And I'll give you a success story now. Apologies for me digressing and diverting from the point. But every interaction, every relationship between any person has a specific objective and a need from each party. So somebody needs to take something away, right? And if I agree to be a mentor to somebody, that's a responsibility. It's a trust that they are giving their trust to me, and I need to honor that responsibility, right? Which then means a lot of time, effort, and everything that goes into calling yourself a mentor. It's probably one of the reasons why I haven't defined that, because that's how I understand it, and it's very time consuming. But that being said, where I can be helpful, what success stories have come of it, let me think of one, is a business called Skin Candy, right? That's the business today holding a great market share in the beauty industry, especially in glutathione and glutathione-based supplemental products, right? So wonderful mission statement, but it all started with a conversation. And the conversation was more around, you can do this, right? And there was a series of conversations about the research, the work that needed to be done by this individual to create a company, you know, even through the financial mentorship of, which is where it all started, to be honest. And just let's put it to you this way, a few months down the line, business was up and running and it was making money. The brand was born, but yet it wasn't a brand. It's still in people's minds now. The skill set of this person was one of marketing background. So the brand and strategy and all of that, I learned something from them, you know. Long story short, there came a point in this business where they needed to redesign their flagship product, and I was included in the discussion. And what happened was I suggested something. I said, you know, when it comes to products, especially supplementation, and we look at the past pharmaceutical industry, it's famously known to get you to continuously buy, right? So you might not get the solution when you buy that medicine off the shelf, but it's just enough for you to continue to keep buying, and that's where the money is made in the industry, the premium income, so to speak, per client or per customer, right? And I threw something out there in the discussion, and it actually ended up going through, and everybody liked it, and they bought into the concept. And the concept was very simple. As an athlete, I said it exactly like this, guys. As an athlete, I believe in supplementation and good nutrition, and so I used to buy a pre-workout, you know, a good protein, and a post-workout. The problems that I faced as an athlete was I needed one ingredient that I found in the information facts of one product that I bought, but I also wanted another ingredient that enables blood flow and all the differentiations, but I couldn't find it all in one product. I had to buy 2 or 3. And that was a huge frustration and a waste of money on my part. But I mean, my need to have those ingredients made me buy all of them, and it is what it is. Call it a pet peeve. So I suggested to this company, if you're going to put something on the shelf and redesign this, what is the clinical formula and for the full solution of the client customer that you're looking to serve? And put in the full clinical dosage and make the product work. That's my suggestion. And very quickly, being the finance guy in this discussion, I said, what you will expect is that if this works, your clients, your customers are going to go on a treatment for 6 months, and then they are going to stop buying. And everybody looks at me, they're like, is that good financial advice? And I said, however, when that happens, you want to also have a range of products that are day-to-day use, such as creams, such as anything that's in the market that you can create as a product on your product lines, because your brand will then have a reputation, firstly, of working. By word of mouth, people will enjoy using your product. They'll see results, and it will sell itself. In terms of keeping the customers that fall off because the product worked, they'll continue to buy because they love your brand. They've seen the value in your brand. They'll continue to buy all the other products, and that's where you're going to have your sustainability in your business. And Doc, if I told you this is exactly how it played out at the time, you know, I mean, what did I know? It wasn't a guaranteed thing. It's just I thought that's the best way that company could have served their customers. But it absolutely worked, and it worked in ways that I mean, you couldn't even have thought about how it worked. And that brand, that company, Skincare SA, is just, they're having fun. You know, they're doing what they wanted to do in their space, and I think, you know, I'm very proud of it. You know, I have a laugh with the owners to say, you know, remember I recommended that to you, and everybody laughed. But you know, it's a wonderful story.
It certainly is. And Nabeel, who would you say are the role models of leadership that you encountered in your career, either personally or through your learning, and who you would recommend future leaders should learn from?
You know, the answer to the question initially, as you were asking it, and as I was reading it, it will shock you, but you'll see at the point when it shocks you. But in terms of the people in my career along the way, there's a lot of role models. I'll tell you, in the stunt industry, there's amazing people that you look up to, from a skill set perspective, from a personality perspective, from just an aura that good leaders have around them. When you're in their presence, you feel safe. Words don't need to be spoken, especially with wonderful people, right? So there's been a handful of those, from I tell you, I've worked with Samuel L. Jackson. Whether he remembers it or not, I remember the presence of him being in the same room. It's different levels to it. There's Grant Powell, Vernon Willemse from the Stunt team. Amazing individuals. They always give you heart. You can trust them as leaders, and they absolutely know their art. And when it's an industry like stunts, you're kind of doing things with the trust of your team, right? Because it's a dangerous thing that you're setting up. You understand the science, you understand your skill set, but ultimately it is a stunt. In a movie, for example, when there's an explosion, an explosion does actually happen. It's real fire and so on. Then in the financial services industry, I seeked out leadership, because there was a point early in my career as a financial advisor. And at the time, I got my business card. It was after product training. And I went to my manager at the time and I said to him, oh, I don't feel like a financial advisor. I can tell you about products, but what makes me a financial advisor? I'm ready to learn that. And he said to me, something along the lines, I can't actually remember the quote, but the short answer to it was, he said, you are a financial advisor, and this is what being a financial advisor is about. And to me, that answer didn't sit well, because to me, that just meant I've stopped learning, And so I went out by myself. Nobody taught me or told me there's a way to do it. And I identified people in the industry that were open to having a conversation, and I learned about as much as I could about the industry, the game, what agendas that play, why, when, how. I just had questions I needed to feed my mind. And you sit down with different personalities who have different values in the way they practice, who have different niche clients as financial planners. I'll definitely, one that's an advocate on LinkedIn. I know you know him, so I'm going to give him a warm shout out. He was also one of the episodes on your series, Kobus Klein. Very wonderful person. And what you can learn from I just sit and I listen. Wherever I can, I'll contribute. But to me, along the journey, it was always about listening to other people, especially in the industry, their stories, how they view the way they practice. There's another guy, Daniel Tumela. There's one guy, Greg Sansom. And I can name a lot. I don't want to be putting, somebody that's listening. There's a lot of guys that I hold massive respect to in this industry that I learned from. The shocking part of the answer to that question is, when you look at, when I first read it, you said, who are the role models of leadership that you'd recommend future leaders to study? Now that, you might not believe me, but I don't have an answer to that question. I generally don't read books. I get a lot of questions about that. But I don't, to me, the time that I spend between family, my business, the different interests of business, how I see the world, I spend the little time that I do try and create for myself, reading a lot of factual articles, reading a lot of, both sides of the field, left, right, middle, and everything in between. And I give thought and I write my own notes. So I generally never have the time to finish a full book. And so I wouldn't give an honest answer to that question if you're asking me who should people study. But I hope that answered the question. To me, it's always been about learning from the people around you in the space that you wish to understand, and at the same time receive the information with your own mind at heart, because it will inevitably become you and how you think about the world.
Thank you. And Nabeel, how can our listeners connect with you, and where should they follow you?
Well, I pretty much have a profile on all the major platforms. There's LinkedIn. They're welcome to click the connect button, send a message, and follow the guiding principles. No, I mean, just reach out, honestly. I have an Instagram page for the channel Money Talks. It's a wonderful place where I started creating infographics. I saw you notice them. I started sharing them on LinkedIn, but that's to create a database of thoughts in a few pictures. So if you want to find out how to pay your bond off in 8 years, you can in a series of 8 pictures. And if you don't have time to watch the YouTube videos on the channel, so there's the YouTube channel as well, which has videos and in-depth thoughts to spend time and understand. Instagram, I have a personal account that has more light-hearted content where I kind of post exactly to that point, things about my life. I'll tell you an interesting story, Doc. For the first time ever, I personally had problems with exactly that I said future leaders also need to start learning to, because I'm also a student, right? And so, I mean, as much as I understood, it's kind of hard to open your whole life up on social media, right? I found that pill very hard to swallow, and I'm slowly getting comfortable with how you do that. In the last month over lockdown, I started sharing a few pictures from my workouts, right? When I train here at home, I started sharing a few pictures of all the cooking that I've been doing, Instagram stories. For the first time, I took a lot of Indian recipes and brought them to life and realized that I'm a good cook myself, if I must say so myself. But what I found very interesting is because the reputation, especially as a top financial planner or MDRT and all of those positions and awards and titles and rankings, that's I usually post financial things, updates, interesting information. But over the lockdown, when I started posting the workout, I started posting the cooking, I started getting, let's say, over 300, I'm just making a number up because it went from zero to a lot of engagement. Instagram, people specifically asking about finances. And with a comment in their messages saying, I really enjoyed you cooking that thing. Tell me above and beyond finance, which I'd like your opinion on, and I'd like you to give me a perspective of thought on an investment or my financial position or whatever it might be. You should also think about starting a fitness training profile or program. And I found that still today, I find it deeply interesting. I've been writing some thoughts down around why and how I think that happened and possible opportunities in the future of how people do business. I don't think there's a conclusive answer to that. But yeah, reach out anywhere. I'm always available. And I'm looking forward to it for those that are listening.
And last but not least, Nabeel, is there one piece of advice that you would like to convey to future leaders that they should implement in their own leadership?
The one thing I'd like them to implement in their own leadership, right, is, I mean, there's a lot that we've covered so far. If there's one thing, I'd say the world today is, call it ground zero, because the world in the last 5 years has changed so much that even if you had 30, 20, 15 years worth of experience, you probably know as much as the person with 20 or 30 years of experience in light of the last 5 years, if that makes sense. And so find the confidence, collaborate, open your mind up. Don't limit yourself to one point of view or the other. Nothing's better than anything else. That sort of mindset, develop your mindset. Always learn, continuously question and find the value in who you are. Bring your values to life in every engagement around you. Because the future is bright, and I absolutely believe anyone can do anything, especially from 2020 moving forward into the future. There's so many possibilities.
Well, Nabeel, thank you so much for sharing your insights and your wisdom into the future of leadership and reminding us that what the mind can conceive, you can achieve.
Absolutely. Doc, as a closing note, I'll tell you one more story. Why sometimes people ask me, how did you become a stuntman? Like, is there a study for it? Or how did you decide to do that sport where somebody jumps from building to building? Honestly, I was just a normal person. And then I saw who's become one of my good friends over the years, but it was this person run up the wall and do a backflip. And I went from athlete, cricket, soccer, the usual, both feet on the ground sports. Uh, and that literal moment is what actually changed my entire behavior, because ever since I saw that, I dedicated well over 10,000 hours of my time voluntarily to the practice of making my body do that. And in the process, I wanted it to learn how to do other things. So my entire journey was dependent, funny enough, if you work it back down to one moment that I imagined of possibility. I never thought that was possible. When I physically saw it, it probably rewired my entire brain and systems. And I'll never forget that. You know, over the years, you do read some things about the history of man and what was possible in the past throughout the different levels of time and in business, etc. And a famous one is the world record of how fast somebody could sprint, right? And a few years ago, I can't remember the exact date, the number for the world record was probably over 11 or 12 seconds until someone beat it. And that opened the doors of possibility to every other athlete. And this is where we have every bit of faith in humanity, because as much as you give and show and be open and be proud of of helping someone else or showing that something is possible, I think as an entire race together, we'll advance beyond any measure. And I think it's important that everyone remember that, to have fun along the way. Thanks for letting me share that last story, Doc.
Thank you. So we can all break through in this new world. And we need
Absolutely.
it, right?
Absolutely.
Nabeel?
Yes, 100%.
Thank you. Thank you very, very much. And looking forward to seeing you on LinkedIn.
Absolutely. And hopefully after the lockdown in person, Doc.